Now this is where I will go full anarchist on you, okay? I think that podcasting as we know it is finished. There's now just...
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Get the Shot, brought to you by Tamron Australia. I'm your host, Joe Orchard. Today with me, super interesting, super awesome. We have Radio Mike. He is a podcast producer. He works with Luke and Sassy Scott. He used to work with Hamish and Andy. If there's two guys and they're a pair, he's worked with them. Welcome to the podcast.
Mate, thank you so much for having me. It's funny you say that because I do feel like I have become the guy to produce male-male duos.
Oh yeah.
There's a few I haven't got yet though, so I'm watching you.
Yeah,
use that as the hook.
I know, right? Well, how many people have just decided to switch on their cameras and start recording a podcast thinking that they'll change the world, right?
I always think about that. Like, I feel like because I produce podcasts like as my business now full time, often I have to like temper people's expectations because like I always say to them like, what do you want to achieve with this podcast? Like, what does success look like to you?
Yep.
Because sometimes I think people just think overnight they're going to become the biggest podcast in the country. They're going to be the next Joe Rogan or something like that, or the next Hamish and Andy maybe in Australia. But it just never. I think everyone should start a podcast if they want to, but I think you should do it more for your own creative fulfillment than any long-term goal of being a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, exactly.
There aren't many multi-millionaires in podcasting.
there's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple, but there's not many.
It's either you're broke or you're super rich.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's one of the two.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's it like being in front of the camera now rather than behind the camera or behind the audio mixer?
Yeah, with stuff like my YouTube channel or like with...
just right now. Can you hear in front of the camera now?
You mean like this? Yeah. I'm pretty used to being on camera, to be honest. Because I do YouTube videos. I did a solo podcast for like 6 years where I'd film myself on a camera. So I feel like when I'm recording audio or recording video of myself, I just feel really natural. Whereas like I remember when video phones first became a thing, like everyone was like, oh, don't film me. But now like I'm so used to it now that I don't even think about it. So I feel pretty natural. Yeah. That's cool.
How would you describe what you do? And I'll elaborate on this because I guess an expression in production is wearing many hats. Mm-hmm. So as a podcast producer, you're mixing the audio.
Yeah.
You've got cameras.
Yeah.
You're setting up, you're directing a little bit. Mm. Like, how would you describe what you do? Yeah.
It can vary a lot. And I think a lot of people, like a big question I think people ask a lot is like, what is a producer? A producer is just a fancy term for like a manager of something. Like every job title is just a fancy way of saying manager of something, I think. And for me, like producing a show, like whether it's like Luke and Sassy Scott or Swag on the Beat or previously like Hamish and Andy, there's a lot of like content decisions involved in that, like making decisions about what goes on the show, helping like craft segments and like write segments as well. But then there's also the technical stuff, which like you said is like running audio, running video, checking all that stuff, data wrangling, editing, uploading, like all of this stuff that I think, not to go back to that first convo we were having, it's like most people think a podcast starts and ends with you pressing record and pressing off record. There is so much more to podcasting, so much work that goes into one episode of a podcast that someone has to do. And most people get caught off guard by that stuff. All the editing and uploading and producing stuff. That's what I think makes most people quit podcasting because they're like, oh, it's not just sitting down and talking.
I
get that.
I know that feeling all too well.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a common trope. I've seen it happen time after time where people go, I thought this was just as simple as me hitting record, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah. I first came across you on one of your reels,
Yeah.
and you were going to a shoot, and you basically had a studio in a suitcase.
Yeah.
Do you remember this video?
Yeah.
What's in the suitcase?
Yeah, so the suitcase, like, funnily enough, I've kind of been doing this for a long time, and I didn't think there was anything like super novel or impressive about it. And you didn't say impressive, but I'm just like...
Oh, it's impressive. It's
yeah,
cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think like I want to show people that making content doesn't necessarily have to be hard and doesn't have to have heaps of friction, right? And you don't need to be in a multi-million-dollar studio or with a big company to make a podcast or a video, YouTube video, whatever. And so the suitcase just has everything I need to record a podcast anywhere in the world. So it's got a Rodecaster, which is a really important audio tool. At some point, I want to upgrade to the Rodecaster Video, which is like a full video audio mixer that you plug cameras into. That's the next step for me. It's got XLR cords, USB, like all the USB cables, headphones, 4 microphones, mic stands, everything kind of like stacked appropriately. Sometimes the suitcase does get messy, I'll give it that. But, pretty much everything, at least audio-wise, to make a podcast is in that suitcase. And it can go anywhere in the world. I could fly to Antarctica today and bring that suitcase as carry-on.
Let me check Flight Centre
Yeah,
quickly.
check flights. Me and you will go together and we'll record the rest of this there. But like, you literally, I can bring that suitcase anywhere on planet Earth and in space, putting it out there, and we can record a podcast.
A podcast in space. Have they done that before?
Maybe. Does
Surely.
Katy Perry on the spaceship count? Is that a podcast?
That would have been a really weird podcast because they had I'm forgetting her name. They had quite a few. Gayle King, that's her name.
Is that who? Is it Jeff Bezos's wife was on it as well or something?
Maybe, but Gayle King famously interviewed R. Kelly when his sentence was going along, but she was like really composed and like polite, but her like foot was shaking at the table below.
Really?
So she knew that the content was like really, really good.
Okay.
And so, as composed as she was, her feet just couldn't like hold back.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Back on topic.
Yes.
A big part of podcasting globally nowadays is a video component to it. So what's the question here? It's like, why has video podcasting become as big as it is? Yeah.
Now this is where I will go full anarchist on you, okay? Because I have this big theory, and I'm in the industry like everyone else, and we're all making calls on where we think the industry is going. So I'll make this big call about video podcasting. I think that podcasting as we know it is finished. There's now just content, and it needs to be in video form, okay? And what I mean by that is like a lot of like traditional legacy media, they're making like shows, like formal audio shows, and they're reluctant to go video because they know audio, but really where it's heading is complete video, okay? YouTube is the #1 streaming platform in the world, more than Netflix, more than Disney, like all of this stuff, right? Most people go to YouTube to watch stuff, and I don't always like using Joe Rogan as a case study because like people have mixed feelings about him, but I will anyway. He'll record a 3.5 hour podcast with some guest. They'll talk for 3.5 hours, and then someone is clipping it up into 10-minute, 5-minute bite-sized pieces and just uploading them to YouTube. I argue most people are consuming that podcast as clips that they are seeing, and that's what I mean when I say the podcast as a format is dead. I think it's now just about having your content repurposed across all different platforms, and video is the way to do that.
I totally agree with you, actually. So you're not quite as crazy as
not
you
an
think
anarchist,
you are. No. Well, maybe we're both anarchists.
Yeah, maybe we are, yeah.
We also do clips, and the clips perform way better. And it's not just like the uploading clips goes to broader audiences. The algorithms on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts push it out to more audiences, and so they just get thousands more views than the actual podcast, at
Yeah.
least currently.
Yeah.
And we actually made a concentrated effort. We used to just release clips that were AI edited, and some did okay, some didn't. But we've now gone, let's do less clips, edit them a bit more, and then as part of the Get the Shot campaign, if we can tell a mini story that is aligned with the brand and the campaign as a clip, it becomes a sort of own product.
Yeah.
So you have the option to watch and listen to the long form like this,
Yeah.
but you also get to enjoy it in the sort of, I still know it as bite-sized
Yeah.
clips,
Yeah.
even though it's sort of a main product for most people.
I think so. And I think that's the thing. Like, the long form will always exist. And to go back to the Joe Rogan case study, like, he'll always do that. And essentially he's farming content.
Yeah.
Like, for lack of a better word. And I know farming makes it sound a bit clinical, but like, he is farming content to put out there, right? And I think every podcast, particularly interview podcasts and opinion-based podcasts, should be doing this, because if you're just putting out audio and you're not clipping it up as video and putting it on YouTube and like you said, YouTube, TikTok, like, those are platforms where the algorithm works for you. And now Spotify is also pushing video.
Yep.
You go into your Spotify homepage, they're showing you video, whether you like it or not. And now they have an algorithm serving that to you as well. So if you're just on audio, I just don't think the algorithm is going to work in your favor. The algorithm's not just going to push out an audio clip. So I think now you should pivot from thinking I'm making a podcast to I'm making content for multiple platforms.
Do you know where the word podcast comes from?
I'm not sure if it's a myth, but is it from iPod broadcast?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. But I wasn't sure if that was like retroactively added or not.
Maybe it was. It's interesting. It started off as a product on iTunes.
Yeah.
And it was designed so radio shows could then upload an export of what
Yeah.
they recorded
Yeah.
onto iTunes.
And my first podcast that I would listen to in that exact way was Hamish and Andy. They were doing a radio show podcast back in the day. But I just think it's shifted so much from then. Like, another example I often use, which is less well known than Joe Rogan, but there's a British scientist named Richard Dawkins. I'm not sure if you've heard of him,
Yep.
but yeah, he wrote The God Delusion, quite a famous like atheist scientific writer and speaker. So he has a podcast feed. It's called the Richard Dawkins Podcast. This guy, his whole career now, I think, is just going around the world doing talks, doing Q&As with live audiences, right? And then someone in his team is just taking the audio of that and putting it on a podcast feed. Like, and I think that he's not thinking about it as like, I have to do a show with like a formal intro and outro. He's just like, just put content up. And
yeah,
people
formality is sort of out the door with a lot of this content stuff, which
think
sort of
that's
bothers
it.
me.
Yeah.
Some of our most successful clips, okay, typical storytelling, beginning, middle, end. Clips that go viral start in the middle, and you sort of figure out what the beginning is after you've been hooked in, and by that point the algorithm's now promoted that video and you've done well.
And I don't necessarily, like, none of what I'm saying should be seen as like, I think all of this is inherently good.
Yeah.
I think there's really bad parts about the way the industry's moving and the way it's shifting totally to video and our attention spans and bite-sized bits. But I do think it just is inevitably going to go that way. So you're better off playing in favor of what's happening.
Well, leapfrogging off that, if you are making video content or a podcast or something like that, what are some of Radio Mike's tips for a better video podcast clip situation?
Do you mean like for social clips or for like full-length videos?
I guess sort of generally, because we've got a 2-shot and I might edit in a wide or something like that. But I'll use us for an example. So I was talking to you about this privately, but here at our office, we have a studio and it's a little bit too narrow on both sides, and a really good visually aesthetic thing is like depth.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to capture depth on social media. So we're sitting in the break room and it just
quite
looks really
comfortable.
nice. It's comfortable and it's
Yeah.
a casual environment. So because we're having an informal chat about using cameras and podcasting and all that sort of stuff, we want to create that sort of social vibe at the same time.
Yeah.
And so if we wanted to have a really serious technical conversation, maybe we'll use cooler tones.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we might, I don't know, I might have a white shirt on that's a bit more fitted rather than this Zara thing I bought for a date however many years ago. So all that is decision making.
Yeah.
And so like Luke and Sassy Scott, they have a really particular set that's
Yeah.
designed and
Yeah.
it
Same with-
informs a lot about who they are.
Okay, yeah. So I got a few responses. Like the first one, when it comes to like using a camera to film a video or a podcast, and I'm just gonna put it out there and say it, like I think the best way to learn is just to experiment and get it wrong heaps of times. If you will never get to a point of being competent with this stuff if you're waiting to get to 100% before you start.
Yep.
Just start, film something, and if it looks shit, can I say shit?
Yep.
I've said it.
You said it.
If it looks shit, you're just like, okay, now I'm gonna learn from this, okay? Because perfectionism is the thief of completion, right? If you're waiting to be a master of a camera before you start filming content, podcast, video, whatever, you'll just never, you will pretty much never get there because you'll constantly be putting the handbrake up on, nah, this isn't perfect. So the first thing I would say is stop wanting it to be perfect. I know we want stuff to look perfect, but I think get it to as good as you can get it with the skill set you currently have. Then talking about how it looks, and like this room, and you mentioned Luke and Sassy Scott, there's also Swag on the Beat, I do. Those guys were really particular about how they wanted their videos to look, how they wanted it to feel tonally, and I think that's important because it gives your show branding and it gives your show a vibe because all of that stuff matters. And one thing I will say, and this is no critique or criticism of any studio in Melbourne that's doing this, but I do notice a lot that a lot of these studios, they are a lot of videos, clips of podcasts filmed in the same podcast studios, they just look exactly the same. And when I see them, I think, okay, so this show, I'm not getting any branding, I'm not getting any idea of what is this show, how am I supposed to feel when I see this show, because there's no set design and there's nothing like making it feel unique. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Because it starts to feel a little bit, not stale, but every single show has the exact same backdrop. There's no personality or vibe to that show. Like even if you look at going back to Joe Rogan, his studio has a vibe. Like you see the studio, you know kind of what you're getting into with that.
I guess it comes down to that every decision that you make about the content that you do will matter. Like what you wear, where you do it, all that stuff. That conveys information.
Yeah.
This is going back to media, intro to media in uni, but signs and signals. That all communicates something to the audience.
Yeah, that's a really eloquent way of putting it, honestly. Like how your set looks, how your videos look, that is information you're communicating. And like for my YouTube stuff, like I talk about like nerdy millennial and Gen Z pop culture, and my background is like a neon blue, and like I've got like
you got shelves and stuff, right?
Shelves with figurines and books, and you can see my Nintendo 64 on the shelf, and stuff like that just gives personality, character, and identity to what you're making. And that stuff, it doesn't have to come first. Like I said, I think it's more about progressing each time and getting a little bit better each time than having it already 100% at the start. But think about that stuff. When someone clicks on my pod or when someone clicks on my YouTube video, whatever it is, what are they seeing? How can I make it better? How can I make it look more professional? How can I decorate it? What should I wear? Etc., etc. If I look at something like Swag on the Beat, you've got Jack and Isaac are the two guys from that group. And, Isaac's, like, even the way even the way he dresses, like, I think it communicates about the kind of person he is. He wears a lot of like band t-shirts of like metal bands, and like you look at that and you're like, oh, this is a guy who's into that world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I think, yeah, that's a perfect example of communicating who this person is and why I might relate to him or not.
You've had a bit of success being a bit of an influencer yourself. How do you feel about that title?
Oh, wow. Am I an influencer?
You're right.
You know what? There's a multi-pronged answer to this, so we might jump around a bit, but like, I quit my job last year on Hamish and Andy, exactly a year ago at time of recording, and I realized sort of two things. I was like, okay, now I don't have any stable job or income, so I need to find a way that I can communicate what I do, while also and that feels authentic to me. So I just started. That's kind of how you would have found me in that video you mentioned about the suitcase. Like, I think it's important if you're working for yourself in this sort of media industry to show people what you can do, because sometimes people don't really know what exists until they see it somewhere, and they're like, oh, this person can do X, Y, Z. Wow, like we need that. And that's how I've brought in a lot of business through word of mouth, and LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff like that. So I like having a creative outlet where I can express myself and talk about the stuff that I'm into. That's kind of how I started a YouTube channel, and that's what I do on Instagram. So I think I'm a really big supporter of everyone who wants to make content. You should not let fear stop you from expressing yourself creatively, because I think that getting maybe philosophical, but I think creativity is like a spiritual thing, like it lives within us. And if you don't give your creativity a chance to come out, it just bursts out of you, and in a negative way. I think it builds up, it bottles itself up, and it's not good for your soul, which is getting a bit philosophical, but I really believe that.
That's all right. It's interesting that you bring up like soul, because I've talked about it before, but when I was doing freelance videography for quite a while, I wanted to do my own content. I wanted to grow my personal brand. Yeah. But as soon as I put down the camera and started filming myself, and then sitting behind DaVinci Resolve again after editing someone else's project, I was a bit like, get me out of here.
Oh, and man, you're speaking my language.
Just burn me out quickly. So how do you balance the personal things that you want to do with your professional obligations?
Yeah. It can be really hard. I struggle with it. I don't think I've got the right balance yet. Just this week, I took Tuesday off because I was just like, I can't. I'm feeling burnt out. I can't manage this. So I find that part really hard, and I don't know if I have the right answer to this question. I don't know.
Andy, am I allowed to take Tuesday off?
No, you can't. Well, what you can do is like and subscribe. Now back to the podcast.
Take the whole day. I think there's an added pressure when you work for yourself. Like, you would know this, like suddenly it is all on you. It is the entire living and dying of your business, of your reputation, is on your willingness to do work. I pretty much work every day. Like, I don't really take days off, and I think I can get better at that. Like actually giving myself time to do stuff that's not sitting in front of the computer, because so much of my time is spent sitting in front of whether it's Premiere or Audition or something like that, and editing other people's stuff, and then editing my stuff, and then even just data wrangling, just like managing files, and then I use Mac, like starts to get slow because you realize you haven't deleted files or cleaned anything or reset it in ages because you've got 5 unfinished timelines that you haven't exported yet. I don't know. all this stuff. Are you laughing because it's familiar?
Yeah,
Or 'cause you
it's a
think
bit
I'm
too
an idiot?
familiar.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Like this is stuff I was dealing with literally today, and all of that stuff is work in progress. But I think for me, it's just I think the key to anything creative, in my opinion, is just showing up, trying to show up every day, try to do something, try to express yourself every day. Sometimes I use this analogy from Harry Potter, which is like, have you seen the Harry Potter movies or read the books?
Yeah, I recently listened to the audiobook with the cast.
Oh,
and it
awesome.
was wonderful.
How good. How good.
Yeah.
What an experience. But like, there's this scene in Harry Potter where Harry's at the Dursleys' house and his Aunt Marge is there and she's insulting him and stuff, and he's not allowed to use magic, right? And then the magic just bursts out of him.
Yep.
And again, that's an analogy I like to think of when magic in this case is creativity, and when you can't let the creativity flow out, it bursts out of you in anger or in something negative. And I always think of that scene from Harry Potter, right?
So interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's why I say just try and show up every day, even if it's just, and it doesn't have to be just for video or podcast. Like if you're a writer, just like write something, like just open up a note thing on your phone and write a journal entry. If you're a musician, just do something to nourish your creative spirit. And to me, that is the most important part of all of this. And if you don't do that, I think you're failing yourself in that sense.
Wow, amazing.
No one's ever said that to me before. Thank you.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Mike, I feel like we could talk for ages and ages.
Oh, it's already
but
over.
we'll have to wrap it up soon, unfortunately. We're starting a new tradition where our previous guest leaves a question for you to answer, not knowing sort of who they are. And the question is, for you,
Yeah.
what is a location that you've traveled to or been to that inspires you?
I'll use a specific example. The first time in my adult life that I ever went overseas was to Tokyo. My dad took me for my 21st birthday. I'm really lucky. And I went up the Tokyo Tower in Minato, which is like a observation tower. And I remember just going up this observation tower in a country I'd never been to, a city I'd never been to, and it was nighttime, and there was endless city skyline in a way I've never seen in Melbourne before. Like this Tokyo urban jungle was enormous, and it was the first time in my life I just remember being like, the world is so big and I'm so small within it. And so probably, let's say Tokyo in general, but like that moment in time was so valuable for me, and I always will remember it.
I've been to Japan a few times as well myself, and I remember we were up a tall tower, similar sort of thing.
Yeah.
And in any direction, you're looking at like 10 million people.
Yeah. And you can get that experience in pretty much any capital city in a developed country, but like
Japan especially.
Japan's awesome. Yeah.
Mike's going to leave a question for our next guest, so tune in next week to find out what that is. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
So awesome, man.
Amazing
Thank you.
insights, and I'm sure we'll speak to you again soon and have you around. What a pleasure.
What a pleasure. I'm stoked to connect, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
This has
Thanks.
been great.
All good. All right, everyone. See you next week.